Today I'm going to show you 3 different methods on how to finish Serger tails and make your cosplays look nice and neat. What is a Serger tail? Well, if you use a serger or overlock machine to finish off the edges of your fabric, you'll be left with these tails at the end. It's not the best to just simply clip them and leave as is because it'll come unraveled. So the first method is tucking the tails in using a tapestry needle. This is a needle with a very large eye, as you can see here. My needle is slightly bent on the end because of consequences, but all you do is get the tail of your serger and feed it through the eye of the needle. You can trim them to make it shorter. So here we go, through the eye, and then you simply just loop it through the loops at the top. You could probably use a plastic needle as well, but I had trouble threading it through the loops because there's a lot of friction, and there's less friction with a metal. So I usually go in about like 4 inches and then come up through one of the loops here, as you can see. So it looks on the other side. It doesn't really matter what side you loop it through. I think I missed some loops, but you know, that's fine. This is for demonstration purposes only. So you pull it, and then you're left with some excess. You can simply just trim this off here, and then pull to straighten out. And there is your tail, tucked in right here. So the pros of this is that it's a fairly common method of finishing serger tails. Leaves it nice and pretty neat. The cons is that for single layer objects, and if you don't finish the serger seam, the tail will show up on the fabric. I'll show you some examples. Here are 2 examples. I made these cotton rounds, reusable ones of course. They are made of cotton flannel, and you can see where I tucked the tail in, and since the serging is exposed around the circle, it shows up. Doesn't look great. Turn it over to the other side, it's fine, but you're still gonna see it. But since I use it as a home, it doesn't matter. On this one, I wanted to show you, since these are technically 2 layers of cotton flannel, I basically, when I tucked the tail in on this one, I hid it between the 2 layers. Basically tucking it in here, in between the 2, to hide it. So it looks a little better, but on single layer objects, leaving the tail can be a little bit bulky on thinner, delicate fabrics. As for the second method of finishing off a serger tail, I'm going to show you the knotting method, or tying a knot at the end. But this is not exactly just taking this and tying a knot. That usually leaves a huge bulky knot at the end here, and it doesn't look great, and then when you wear the garment, sometimes that knot will rub. I've learned from personal experience. So, around here, we are going to cut at least a centimeter. I'm going to show you the centimeter here. As you can see, centimeter. We will leave about a centimeter of the tail. So I'm going to cut it right here. So I use a 4-threaded serger. You want to know how many threads your serger has. Mine has 4. There's sometimes 5 or 3 thread sergers. Since mine is 4, you want to make sure there's 4 threads poking out. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to carefully grab these. Well, that's one, not one apparently. Sometimes you get tricked from the smaller threads. So you carefully pull each one. This takes a little bit of practice. I've gotten this down pretty good to where I can tie them pretty quick. So you want to pull until there is resistance. As you can see, I'm pulling. They're not really pulling anymore. So pull the other ones. That one came out a little bit more. And you keep pulling until they all knot. There's going to be a couple of strands that will keep pulling, but as long as you get them to where you pull all 4 together and there's resistance, and you can see very, very up close that it has made a small knot. So make sure you pull it just to make sure everything knots right. And then you can simply snip off. And this method also has its pros and cons as well. As you can see here, you're left with a very neat finished end. The knot is small and not bulky like when you regularly just tie it off and cut. But also at the same time, there is risk of it coming unraveled if you don't do it right. So this is something I would say practice on. The next method is the turn back method. This one I'm not too big of a fan on. So basically you have your serger, your cutter is on. That means cutting is on. We're going to serge the side here. And when we get to the end, we're going to go a little bit past. You see, we go a little bit, and then you simply take this piece, and then this is the side we were working with, and you slowly flip it over like this. And start back at the beginning. Turn your cutter off, or disengage the cutter, and simply sew or serge. But serge back onto the line itself, and then cut. So this is the turn back method. A pro of the turn back method is that it's very efficient. So when you're sewing lots of items at once, you can simply just do this, turn it back around on your serger, sew and clip, and then go to the next piece. As for a con, if you're working with delicate fabrics, it can add a bit of bulk. And also if you're looking for like neatness, it's not the neatest. As you can see, the consistency in the serging, it doesn't look as great, but this is all subjective, and it is best to find out which serger method works best for you. Will it be the tail tuck method, as you can see here, the knot method, as you can see here, or will it be the turn back? Let me know in the comments which one you like to use.